MRAs don't seem to understand that feminists don't engage with them for the same reason actual scientists generally don't engage with Earth creationists. You don't deserve, nor have you earned the legitimacy or respect of those in the fields of study you claim expertise. And feminists do? I love the projection here. What exactly have feminists done that should earn them respect? Incessantly whine about non-issues? Shamelessly trivialize men's issues while simultaneously trying to make everything about women's issues? Repeatedly disrupting conferences about men's issues, even going so far as to pull a fire alarm? That's not a movement that I would ever respect. Now, the men's rights movement is a different story. Unlike feminists, MRAs talk about real issues and spread awareness about them with websites, posters, and conferences. They even have a list of solid objective goals to achieve on their mission statement page at their website, A Voice for Men. Feminists, however, do not. They have no solid objective goals to achieve, and the goals that they do have are flimsy, impractical, and unrealistic. Here are a few examples. Example 1. I want there to be a world where women can walk down the streets and wear anything they want without fear of being raped or catcalled. Example 2. I want a world where women are equally represented in every job above the glass ceiling. Example 3. I want sexism against women to end. Not only is it impossible for a single one of those goals to be achieved, but feminists often don't bother objectively explaining exactly what they mean when they say they want equality. They don't measure it or quantify it. How can I respect a movement that doesn't even have a valid reason to exist, let alone refuses to have any discussion about men's issues? It's simple. I can't. Maybe you should read up on something a little more before you criticize it. A few facts that need to be realized by anti-feminists and MRAs. Oh, this should be good. Feminism is recognized by academia. And why should I care? Even academia can be tainted by toxic ideologies like feminism. Anti-feminism is recognized by no one except YouTube spammers. You keep thinking that. Feminism is an ally to any minority and oppressed group. No, it isn't. You think it is, but feminism only bothers with these groups because they help perpetuate its victim agenda. Conversely, the MRM's allies are all sexists, male chauvinists like MGTOW and Red Pillars. Who said that those people were their allies? They're not. MGTOW and the Red Pill community aren't even sexist as a whole. You just don't like what they say. The MRM's arguments are always either the result of straw grasping or masquerading exceptions to the rule as a counter-argument. I don't think you've listened to very many MRAs then. Anti-feminism is a conservative position. Is that really the case, or do you simply not like it? Not every anti-feminist is a conservative. In fact, many aren't. MRAs are anti-feminism before anything else. Not all MRAs are anti-feminists, though I wouldn't blame them if they all were, due to the recent incidents that feminists have caused at conferences about men's issues. And quote that neologism coined by right-wing lunatic Rush Limbaugh, feminazi, in a non-ironic way, as if feminists have anything in common with Nazis. Well, I've seen feminists who don't seem to like free speech, so... The comments that Lego Daleks responded to disappeared, so I'll just be reading the reply. Pardon? By your logic, voodoo is on par with medicine. That's not the case. If something is academically recognized, it has enough weight and integrity. When something isn't, it lacks all credibility by anyone who matters. Oh, I wouldn't go that far. True, something that's been perused by academia does gain some credibility, but the credibility of the person who makes an argument has nothing to do with the argument's veracity. I'm claiming MRAs have no good allies. They don't have any allies, period. No one seems to care about men's issues after all. Plus, I have yet to see evidence of real man hatred. I've seen plenty of it, some of it from feminists themselves. Whereas misogyny is a real problem. No, it isn't. I know this is hard for a lot of feminists to understand, but the Western world is actually very pro-woman. We have a male feminist president, and there are plenty of organizations that address women's issues, such as UN Women and the National Organization of Women, or NOW, for short. Misogyny isn't even welcome here, and anyone who is guilty of it is shamed in the media. In fact, men generally do not hate and have never hated women. For instance, Elliot Rodger was a misogynist, and Mark Lepine killed dozens of women in the fight against feminism. Okay, there are 3 problems with this. Number 1, they both had psychological issues. Number 2, Elliot Rodger also hated men who had more sexually active lives than he did. Number 3, Mark Lepine didn't hate women, he hated feminists. Again, I know that this is hard for a lot of feminists to understand, but just because you hate feminism doesn't mean you hate women. Feminism and women are not and have never been the same thing. So no, those 2 incidents are not good examples of misogyny. Once again, I know that this is hard for a lot of feminists to understand, but not every crime that happens to a woman is an example of misogyny. That's silly. That means they are not activists. Actually, they are. As I've mentioned earlier, they spread awareness of men's issues with their websites and posters, and they hold conferences that discuss men's issues. They've even attempted to open a shelter for male victims of domestic violence, though that didn't go so well. All of this proves that MRAs are activists. By Mark Lepine example proves that even the worst feminists aren't as evil, dangerous, and deadly as the worst anti-feminists. Really? Because Valerie Solanas would like a word with you. Number 1, academia is stupid, which is why they embrace feminism. It is elitist and dumb to assume that academics always are right. Number 2, feminism is a hate movement, which is against equality. It treats all women as victims and pushes legislation which discriminates against men. Example, VAWA. Number 3, feminists' arguments are based on a female victim mentality and a lot of cherry picking to begin with. Example, men are oppressors. Huh? Number 4, feminism is a right-wing, anti-free speech position. Number 5, feminists are anti-MRA, partly because they ignore all the ways that women are ahead of men in rights, not the opposite. You nailed it, though I haven't looked into VAWA myself, and I thought feminism was left-wing. The men's rights movement is like having a straight rights movement, able-bodied movement, or a white people supports group. They are just a tiny but committed group of angry, frustrated little men who target women for their pathetic lives. And here come the shaming tactics. How pitiful. They are only relevant online. In the real world, they have little or no support, even amongst men. That's because the real world has made it quite clear that men's feelings and issues simply do not matter, and to add insult to injury, the media constantly defames the men's rights movement. P.S. Awesome video, Steve. P.S. Don't lie to him. Let's see. Women on average get shorter prison sentences than men for the same crime. The legal definition of rape is contorted in such a way that made to penetrate does not count as rape. Men will often get their lives ruined if they are falsely accused of rape, and the accuser rarely gets punished. Women have the right to genital integrity while men don't. Women have reproductive rights while men don't. Despite domestic violence against men being an issue, there are barely any shelters for them to go, if any at all. In public, people will rush a man if he attacks his girlfriend, but will ignore or laugh if she attacks him. And women often get free passes into education and jobs while men have to work for it. So, men's rights aren't needed, you say? Stop using facts. You'll hurt its feelings. Seriously, good post. The MRM is the most embarrassing thing to happen to males since feminism? Yeah, I'd say so. Fuck it, I can't think of anything more embarrassing than the MRM. Well, there's you. Just stop it! Stop it! I say the same thing to these comments. Yawn. Exactly. Immaculate argumentation skills, or lack thereof. Same exact thing could be said about feminism. Indeed, feminism really is the embodiment of a bad movement. MRA, misogynistic rape apologist. Do I sense a bit of projection there? I mean, there is no other movement that is more misogynistic and rape apologizing than feminism. Ironic, isn't it? You wear your bigotry as a badge. The neo-feminist way. Yep, keep drinking the Kool-Aid, you white knight stooge. Did she sleep with you yet, by the way? No? Well, there's a shocker. Ad hominem designed to not have to actually address the spear points of the movement. Good job at failing hard in reason and logic, like many other feminists. Ruling the world is a male privilege? Point me to the man in charge. I've never met a single male who rules anything half significant. Not really a male privilege if just about 0 men have it, right, Stephen? Most billionaires, CEOs, prime ministers, MPs, judges, military officials. Very few women worldwide in leadership positions, historically or to this day. Which is in no small part due to women's personal choices. That's irrelevant here though. Try adding up all those billionaires, CEOs, and political figures. Give me a number, seriously. Then divide the number of men in the world who all hold male privilege, according to feminists, by that number and tell me what fraction of men are actually in those positions. 0.0005%? Really, crunch the numbers and tell me what fraction of the male population you're using to represent males globally. People's choices are based on the environment. Most politicians were former CEOs or governors. There are various obstacles and social expectations that prevent people, whether in reality or a personal attitude, that leads to what type of job a person does. People's choices are based on the environment. By the time a person is an adult, their choices are all their own, and they may choose any direction for themselves. Stop treating women like children. Aw, but agency is hard. Most politicians were former CEOs or governors. Governors are politicians. There are various obstacles and social expectations that prevent people, whether in reality or a personal attitude, that leads to what type of job a person does. Really? So what job do you do? What has held you back from being a CEO? You treat people like they're incapable of free thought and independent choice. Consider that more women may not desire to be high-ranking political officers or executives because of the sacrifice of personal life, the risks, and a culture of hypergamy, which would demand men work to gain power in hopes of pleasing women. Stop dodging this part. Try adding up all those billionaires, CEOs, and political figures. Give me a number, seriously. Then divide the number of men in the world who all hold male privilege, according to feminists, by that number and tell me what fraction of men are actually in those positions. You're using these figures to represent men. It's downright illogical, and you're being called out on it. Tell me what percentage of males these figures are and show your sources. Replying without doing so means instant banning. I don't tolerate trolls. Men might avoid nursing, ballet dancing, or pre-K teaching because they are stigmatized and not expected to do this type of work. Life is more complicated than people choosing or not choosing to pick a career. I knew you'd be unable to pull up figures to support your bigoted arguments. Okay, let's see. This'll be fun. Obama, for starters. Most of Congress, most of the Supreme Court, the majority of state governments, majority of cops, and that's just in the US, where there's more equality than most of the world. How about in the Middle East, where women aren't even allowed to drive? Like seriously, where do you live where women are in charge? Can I please move there? Obama, for starters. Most of Congress, most of the Supreme Court, the majority of state governments. Elected representatives that were elected by who? Voters. There are more female voters than males, making their voting power more represented than males. Obama is a fucking feminist, for fuck's sake! Side note, I don't think elected officials basically ever do a decent job of representing the voting population. So not only are they not representing voters, they're absolutely not representing a vague male interest that would lead any rational person to the conclusion that males are somehow privileged. Some random person in power with the penis does absolutely nothing special for the millions of people who also have penises around them. Now does it? You fail. Majority of cops, not exactly a position of power. They're enforcers of laws and bound by laws. They don't make them. There are no gender barriers to women entering the police force anyway. But using social justice warrior logic, you would think that police being mostly male would fail males over females. In fact, the opposite is true. Males are far more likely to be harassed, threatened, assaulted, and killed by the police. A majority male police force is not a benefit to males at large. You fail again. How about in the Middle East, where women aren't even allowed to drive? The Middle East is a big place with lots of diverse countries. You knew that, right? Are you perhaps referring to a country where male children are trained how to fight in war? Yeah, this is not a place where you would want to be a civilian of any gender. Keep pretending it's a utopia for males there. Ignorance is what you people do best. And another thing, people who keep saying that women are not allowed to drive, individual choice is not a universal value. Get that through your heads. Not every culture agrees with free will. Not every culture celebrates free will. Just look at collectivistic countries like Japan. And in fact, most of the women over there in Saudi Arabia don't want the driving ban lifted. They simply don't. So leave them alone. Stop bothering them. They are not victims, okay? Like seriously, where do you live where women are in charge? You already live there. You have more rights than men do and just as much political power. Someday when you grow up, who are we kidding? You'll realize that demographics of people who only have anatomical features in common aren't a hive mind who think and behave collectively. I'm not an elected official, a cop, a CEO, or anything like that. What power do I have? Nothing? That's why male privilege is retarded feminist propaganda. Any power that isn't shared among a demographic can't be used to represent a demographic. You received a lot more logic here than you deserve for being so intellectually impotent. You're welcome. Flawless bitch slap. Flawless. Lot of pissed off penises in these here comments, lol. Like those pissed off vaginas that populate the comment sections of videos that criticize feminism and or talk about men's issues. I think you should work in a movie theater. You would make a great projector. Love you too. Not that anyone else ever will. Actually, penises don't possess any cognitive function themselves, so it doesn't really make any sense to imply that they have emotional states. Correct. To be fair, they can get excited. If the OP is a woman, I doubt penises will get excited in her presence. And cue the torrent of white men with the victim complex in 3, 2, oh wait, just scroll down. Such racism and sexism. Not every person who critiques this video is a white man. Oh, and I love the projection. Well, I'm off to live my life now. Assuming you have one. You know, the one that doesn't revolve around YouTube and involves interacting with actual females who actually like and respect me? Yeah, that one. Cue shaming tactics. In fact, I think I'll set up a date tonight. It's just a phone call away. Don't lie to us. You should try respecting women sometime. Respect is earned, not given. Lots of upsides, like good sex. That doesn't require use of a blow-up doll or your own hand. Cue more shaming tactics.